In the prim and proper society of 2018 America, there's been a heavy crackdown on what is and isn't acceptable in modern media. In fact, there's been such an outcry for mandatory political correctness that some scenarios are entirely inconceivable to your standard issue millennial. Bigotry is only for bad guys, immigration, abortion, gun control. Correct answers to these complex issues have already been decided for you. And modern-day heroes with their modern-day values will always take the liberal stance to reinforce those correct answers. So to a generation of creators growing up in a culture that is intolerant of the wrong type of intolerance, it begs the question, can a racist character also be a hero? Fact. Most people hate racists. While it's true that heroes were and are characters to be admired in some way, one thing they used to have, before Marvel and Disney Star Wars came along, were flaws. Real flaws, not the easy Mary Sue-ish type flaws that don't actually detract from the character at all, like being too devoted, too moody, having a tragic backstory, or having uncontrollable powers. No, when I say flaws, I mean ugly, destructive quirks that stem from the character's personality, the bad that comes with the good. In other words, a flaw that's solely the character's own fault. Sherlock Holmes' drug use, the rage of Achilles, the arrogance of Julius Caesar. It's their virtues that make them admirable, but it's their flaws that make them human. Now I know, drug use, arrogance, uncontrollable rage aren't nearly as taboo as racism is today. In some circles, they might actually be virtues. And admittedly, having a prejudice is a little different. After all, addiction, arrogance, extreme anger are more self-destructive traits. You might even feel sorry for how these people drive everyone in their lives away while they battle their own demons. Racism, on the other hand, is far less sympathetic. It's easy to hate someone in possession of qualities often attributed to villains. But, believe it or not, this exact thought experiment led to the creation of the character Tony Stark.
I think I gave myself a day. It was the height of the Cold War. The readers, the young readers, if there was one thing they hated, it was the war. It was the military. So I got a hero who represented that to the 100th degree. He was a weapons manufacturer. He was providing weapons for the army. He was rich. He was an industrialist. I thought it would be fun to take that kind of character that nobody would like, none of our readers would like, and shove him down their throats and make them like him. He became very popular.
Stan Lee identified every trait the young readership despised, every unforgivable sin, mashed them all together, and made the legendary Iron Man. To place this achievement in context, the modern-day equivalent would be a white, heterosexual male who's also a successful billionaire businessman. Yeah, imagine getting millennials to buy that comic every month. However, being a rich business mogul who sells weapons to the military doesn't quite touch racism, does it? After all, you can have the same weapons traders sell to a rebellious faction trying to topple an evil empire. Racism is never heroic or noble in any scenario. But then, the point isn't to explore how racism could be heroic, is it? The point is to explore whether or not a character with such an irredeemable flaw could be heroic. And that brings me to my next point. Philosophers have long debated over the true definition of morality. Is an action good because the intention was good? Or is the action good because the outcome was good? To some, those two ideas might seem inseparable. But let me provide an example. A serial murderer goes out into the night looking for someone to kill. He finds someone and kills them. Nothing moral here so far, right? Well, it so happens that the morning newspaper reports that the person killed by the murderer was another murderer likely on his way to claim another victim. So, did the killer commit a moral act because his actions killed a murderer and saved a life? Or were his actions immoral, since his intention was to kill, not to stop a criminal? Now, to most, you might say it's the intention that matters. After all, you might intend to help your friend pass that big test. Then you make a mistake, your friend fails out of school, never achieves his dreams, and ends up on the streets working as a bitter video games journalist. But you didn't mean to do that, right? Well, take this into consideration. One of the biggest differences between a villain and a hero is, arguably, the drive to action. Villains are driven to commit evil actions, and heroes are driven to commit good ones. But then, you have instances where heroes overstep their bounds and cross into morally gray territory. DC's Injustice storyline, for example, pivoted on their most noble hero murdering one of their most notorious villains. Superman's intention was to kill the Joker for the death of Lois Lane. The Joker, in this timeline, killed Superman's love interest by gleefully setting off a nuke inside a city so large they titled it Metropolis. And the Joker being the Joker, there's no stopping his homicidal side. He'll be arrested, he'll escape from prison, and he'll go off to kill again. Superman's intentions clearly weren't pure. He killed the Joker out of anger, a need for revenge. This was murder, not justice. However, putting the storyline's aftermath aside, in that moment, the Joker's death potentially prevented the deaths of thousands to millions of people. When you compare intentions with actions, morality becomes far more complex. Suddenly, scenarios that seem to have easy right and wrong answers now seem a little more ambiguous. And when you take all that into consideration, is it really so hard to imagine a racist character acting heroic? In fact, you might be surprised when your racist hero turns out to be one of the noblest members of the team. Stories run on drama. Good stories run on good drama. And good drama stems from deep, character-driven conflict, whether it be from a hero's concern for a captured loved one, or a challenge made to exploit a hero's weaknesses, or whether it be from a constant internal struggle against a dangerous character flaw. As we saw in the previous example, there's actually a big difference between intention and outcome. Likewise, there's also a similar difference between thought and action. Superman, outside the Injustice timeline, exists in pop culture as the iconic hero. He protects the weak. He fights evil. He's strong, masculine. He doesn't kill. He's kind and understanding. He's generous and selfless. He cares as much for the lives of the guilty as he does for the lives of the innocent. His thoughts and his actions are perfectly in sync. He's a good guy from the bottom of his heart. And that's why some people find him so boring. Heroes are defined by their opposition. The greater the opposition, the greater the hero. The story comes from witnessing the hero's struggle. Remove the struggle, remove the story. So, what does all this have to do with the question, can a racist character be heroic? Well, consider this. When Superman sees a person trapped in a burning building, he rescues them without a second thought. And for Superman, rescuing someone from a burning building is as easy as breathing. No struggle, no conflict. Now, what if there were another hero with the same powers as Superman? Imagine if something had happened in his life to make him hate an entire group of people based solely on the color of their skin. Maybe his parents were killed. Some kind of trauma that left a deep-seated resentment for certain kinds of people. And this hatred is something he struggled with his entire life. Now, some of you might be asking, how can such a character possibly be a hero? Imagine this character, again, the same abilities as Superman, seeing a person trapped inside a burning building. This time, however, this person is of the race he's developed a hatred for. Maybe it's a woman. Maybe it's a mother and child, neither of which he's ever met before. But it doesn't matter. That hatred is still there, telling him to let them die like their kind, let his parents die. Moments like these are what make a character. They are what separate a hero from a villain, the noble from the ignoble. A villain would be the one who succumbed to his hatred, but a hero would be the one who could battle his negative thoughts and act to do the right thing. Overcoming great obstacles makes a great hero, and it's that vicious internal struggle that creates good drama. There's no accomplishment in easy victories. After all, what's more exciting? seeing a baby take its first steps, or watching the average person walk down the street, seeing Superman save a life, or watching Lex Luthor save a life. Just as a major difference exists between intent and result, between our thoughts and our actions, there is an important difference between a character with evil thoughts and an evil character. There's such a strong push to see things as definite rights and wrongs. Nuance and context are forgotten. A writer's job is to break away from the mainstream, find other avenues of thought, explore the parts of humanity many of us want to keep hidden, and not only to explore it, but as Stan Lee did with Tony Stark, to make people fall in love with the things they hate. I mentioned that your racist hero might turn out to be one of the noblest members of the team. Now, how can that be if even appearing to be racist today is one of the worst crimes you can commit? Well, when you remember that heroes are still human, extraordinary people with very real and sometimes destructive character flaws. When you remember that our thoughts, our intentions, our actions, and the results of those actions are very different things, and the major telling difference between a villain and a hero is that painful internal struggle. When you remember all that, in the end, who is the nobler hero? The one who finds it easy to do the right thing? Or the hero who's weighed down by a villainous character flaw, but performs good deeds anyway? Of course, none of this applies only to racism. With the dawn of social justice protagonists, where characters that are women or minorities are foolishly expected to represent all women or all minorities, character flaws are no longer seen as character flaws. Rather, any flaw any of these characters might possess would be seen as a writer's admission that he believes every member of that character's group also possesses that flaw. If a female protagonist is greedy, suddenly the writer is accusing all women of being gold diggers. If a character is part of a gang, suddenly the writer is accusing all members of that character's race of being criminals. So, in Hollywood's noble hunt for diversity, they have forsaken flaws, dismissed that internal struggle, and replaced them with quirky millennial dialogue and LOL so random humor. Politically correct characters have been purged of their humanity. They are piles of clean, crisp, corporate cliché that must hide their hollow personalities behind big-name franchises and terrible gimmicks. They're not allowed to make mistakes. They're not allowed to be wrong. They're not allowed to be offensive. They're only allowed to be Superman with the man taken away. Don't make characters acceptable. Make them harsh. Make them offensive. Make them despicable and raw. Make them say the wrong things. Give them the wrong opinions. Make them soldiers. Make them aliens or monsters. Make them demons or gods. But above all else, whatever you do, remember to make them human.